Success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached, but by the obstacles that they have overcome. Yo, what's good, everybody? This is your boy Malk, and this is another episode of the Mindset of a Hustler podcast. This is episode number 2. Damn, we got this thing rolling. We full steam ahead. We going. We here now. There's no turning back. Episode 2. Let's get it. If you haven't done so, please hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast at, just so you don't miss an episode. And let's just jump right into it today. So, in case you've been living under a rock, we are obviously like 3 or 4 months into quarantine, and definitely have learned a lot, to say the least. And I thought it would be fun to, instead of hearing me talk, well, I'm still going to be talking, but instead of hearing me, share my opinions and all that good stuff, I figured it'd be cool to ask the question to our audience. And the question was, what have you learned during the times of quarantine, during the Corona era? And we got a lot of responses. So today's episode, I'm just going to share those responses with you. They're in no particular order. I may butcher some stuff, but just bear with me. But there were some really good responses in here. Again, they're not in any particular order, so don't be mad at me whether you're first or last. It had nothing to do with anything. I'm just reading them how I got them, so chill out. All right? So let's get right into it. The first response is from my dog, Dakota. And Dakota says, "The securities the world gives can be gone in a second. Foundation is critical." Definitely a good lesson to take away is the things that we think are secure aren't necessarily always that secure. And I would definitely agree with that. I'm sure a lot of you would agree with that as well. Next up, my dog Spencer. Spencer says, "Once I acknowledge everything, good and bad, the only thing stopping me is me." And you know I fuck with this one because the only thing stopping us 9 times out of 10 is our own self. Not anybody else, not what's going on in the world, not Corona, not, the president, not whatever. It's usually us. So once you get out of your own way is when things start to open up for you. So good answer, Spencer. Next up, my dog Devin, who hosts Devin No One Cares podcast. Dope individual, met him a while ago. Devin says, "Learning to be still and breaking down my own habits, good and bad." I think that's important because the only time we usually do that is New Year's, when we start looking at our habits and looking at whether they are beneficial or not to our lives, good or bad. So definitely this was a time for us to look into that a little bit more. So I appreciate that, Devin. Next up, Chase. Chase says, "Perspectives seem to deteriorate when misinformation is at an all-time high." Definitely agree with that. I think the main essential part of what he's trying to get at is just be careful where you get your information from, and do some research. Don't believe everything that you see or hear, and learn the difference between opinion and fact. So that's what I took from that, especially during these times that everybody's talking about conspiracies and all different type of shit. Do your own research, get your own information, figure out what's best for you. So next up, my man Michael. Michael says, "Life is a book, and each day is a new page. You can't rush a thing, and you can't forget a thing. It's all a process." I like that analogy that life is kind of like a book, because every day we are given, basically a new page to write whatever the fuck we want. And so don't forget anything, and just trust the process. So dope. Next up, Hillary. Hillary says, "The virtue of what it means to slow down, being more kind and patient when I feel triggered." Yeah, I think we all kind of learned what it means to slow down. I feel like we were all, when you being bad as a kid and your mom puts you in timeout, I feel like the world was just put in timeout. And, Mother Nature or whatever was like, y'all need to sit the fuck down for a minute, slow down, pump your brakes. And I think we've all kind of learned to be a little bit more patient, a little more kind with each other, because we're all really in this shit together. So I like that response. Next up, Gabi. Gabi says she's learned to stop cutting herself off when she has something to say and to not limit who she is. I think that's a good takeaway because, a lot of us sometimes we dumb ourselves down to fit the criteria that we think other people want to see from us. And that's going to fuck us up at the end of the day. We can't live life like that. We got to keep true to ourselves. And if you got something to say it. And if people are not okay with that, then you'll learn who's, in your corner or not. But at the end of the day, you got to be who you are. So I like that response a lot. Next up, my dog Trey. Trey says, our ultimate purpose is leaving a legacy and impacting others. And without people, life is boring. I couldn't agree with that more. I think, when we get to the end of our lives, we're not going to ask so much what we accomplished, but, who we touched. And I really just... I agree. Leaving a legacy is more important to me, and I'm sure a lot of you, than getting accolades or getting recognized for things. But I like that response a lot, Trey. Thanks a lot. Next up, my dog Hype. Hype says he's learned that he's been limiting himself, and I think we can all kind of agree with that. That again, going back to what Spencer said, we got to learn that the only thing stopping us is us, and we place our own limits on ourselves at times. And we should learn not to do that. You know what I mean? So, appreciate the response, Hype. Next up, Mason. Mason says he's learned how important it is to monitor your self-talk. Couldn't agree more. The things that you say to yourself on a daily basis are going to affect who you are in the long run and in the future. And I think that, this time has allowed us to really look at the things that we say to ourselves and analyze whether that's good or bad, the things that we say to ourselves. So, hope you're positive with your self-talk in the future. So, next up, my man Alex Cedor. Cedor says he's learned to never doubt your ability to better yourself, physically and mentally, and he's learned to set daily goals. Again, don't place any limits on yourselves. Regardless of what's going on in the world with Corona or anything else, you still got to have your daily goals and you still got to work on achieving them. There shouldn't be anything that, unless it's like something super drastic, that stops you from working on your goals. So I appreciate that response, Alex. Next up, my homie Josh says, the most important step in your journey is the next one. It doesn't matter how good or bad the last one was. It's always 2 steps ahead and stay present. I think that's important because, what you've done in the past, who you were in the past is irrelevant. And it's all about what you're going to do now, what we're going to do now, what we're going to do next, and how you're going to take 2 steps ahead when it seems like the world has taken a couple steps back also, So keep pushing, keep moving forward, and don't worry about the things that you've done in the past. That's a good response to Josh. Next up, Caden says, nobody is going to do it for you. Isolation means facing the fact that we dictate our own success. I think that's super important. Nobody's going to come and save you from this except yourself. And if you have goals and you're focused on success, then this shit is not going to stop you. This is only going to reveal who's really about that life. To put it honest with you, people had goals at the beginning of the year. This is going to tell us whether or not you were serious about them. Your fitness goals, your business goals, all that shit. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to, pull you out of this shit but yourself. So if you had your goals and you're sticking with them, I applaud you. And if not, it's a chance to get back. You still got time. You can still get back in the gym, or not in the gym because we can't go to the gym. You can still get back on a fitness plan or something like that. But, don't let this shit stop you. So I like that response. Next up, my homie David. David says he's learning to be more well-grounded and patient with the flow of life and being more intentional. I think that's definitely important because, the word that stuck out to me was flow. We got to learn to flow with this shit because life is going to hand us curveballs all the time, It's all about, my brother said this the other day, he said you got to be like water. And you got to just go with the flow sometimes. You got to adapt to certain situations. It's not always going to go how you want it to go, but if you learn how to flow with it and adapt to it, then, you can come out better because of it. So I like that response. Next up, Selena says she's learned that how you sit through your emotional triggers is found in your purpose of production. And I got a chance to ask her what she meant by that. And, I think what she's just saying is, learn why you're doing what you do. Next up, Kristen says, some people act like they have a second chance. Life doesn't stop for anyone. We all have the same 24 hours. Yo, that shit hit hard because even personally, it's like sometimes we go through life thinking that we got a second chance at this shit and we don't. You know what I mean? Like, this is, after this is it. And even though some shit hit the fan, or life threw us a curveball, we don't get a second chance at this. So whatever we do during this time, we're not gonna get this time back. And I think sometimes we operate like we will, and I think that's a good wake up call that we won't. So definitely like that response. Next up, the big homie James Rucker. We out here living, baby. James says, everyone has an idea, but the moment you take action, it can change your whole world. And James and I talk about this all the time. Everyone's got a good idea. You think about a business that was starting, you're like, damn, I had that idea. That was a good idea. But how many people are putting into action? How many people are, taking steps toward that idea to make that a reality? And I think we both learned that it's one thing to talk about doing shit, it's another thing to actually do something. So put your words into action and watch how much your life will change. Whether it's big action or small action, any action moving you towards your goal, your life is going to change for the better. So, next up, my dog Danny Reynolds. Danny says, perspective is everything. Adversity is an opportunity to become better than ever. Couldn't agree with you more. And life is built on adversity. And it's one thing to be a good person when everything's going smooth. It's another thing when shit hits the fan and you gotta it's a gut check time to see the type of person you really are. So, perspective, and he says perspective is everything. I think we've all kind of gained valuable perspective from all this as well. So, appreciate that answer, Danny. Next up, Ricky. Ricky says, hard work is done when no one is looking, aka the scary hours. Scary hours to us is, the times when nobody wants to be doing shit. And that's usually between like 10 p.m. and like 4 a.m. That's the scary hours when you put in that work and that grind. And I think now we're kind of realizing the scary hours are, the time when you can't get in the gym or you can't go and do what you want to do. Are you still going to, is your fitness still going to be a priority? I think we're starting to learn that. And so I appreciate that response. Next up, Kristen says, being single is nothing to be ashamed of. And I think that's a really important lesson. You know what I mean? A lot of people are in quarantine by themselves. And they're maybe at the beginning were wishing that they had somebody to spend that time with. But I think you start, being alone doesn't necessarily make you lonely. You know what I mean? Being alone is oftentimes a good thing because you learn to establish and cultivate that relationship that you have with yourself, which is the most important relationship that you can have if you wanted to be in a relationship with somebody else. But that's that's a different episode. We'll talk about that one later. And next, my man Dale. Dale says he's not defined by his accomplishments. And I kind of touched on this in the first episode where, I kind of felt like my self-worth was dependent on rather what I did and, the type of, accomplishments and everything he's saying. You're not defined by anything that you've done or necessarily will do, but you're more defined by the type of person you are and how you treat other people. So, good response, Dale. Next up, my girl Cheyenne says she is focusing on a closer net of friends. She's appreciating quality over quantity of friends. She's learning a simpler way of living and focusing on improving life and not improving her life and not obsessing over the lives of others. I think there's a lot in there that's good takeaways. Learning that our friends and our family really are everything, and getting a whole bunch of followers and all that shit really is important, but having a good core group of friends and people in your life that support you and love you and, will motivate you and push you is important. And just learning to stay in your own lane and not worry about so much what other people are doing and not worry about what everyone else is doing on social media or how they're living their life. And just live your own life, you know what I mean? And be appreciative of the things you have in your own life. So, next up, Lily says that quarantine has taught her to appreciate nature because she's been working out outside instead of the gym. She's learned that it's necessary to be creative, grateful, and to take a break from our fast-paced society. I couldn't agree more. I spent more time outside with the dogs or, taking nature walks. I've been a nature boy lately. Nature, I think, is very refreshing to be out there and, put your phone up and put social media away for a while and just be out in nature and just, realize that, how connected to this shit we all really are. So I definitely appreciate that response for sure. Next up, my man CJ. CJ says he's learned to be gentle and patient with himself and also the power of being fully present. I think we've all can learn from that, a lot of us have fallen off with our goals, and, I'm no different. I've, slacked on some areas in my life here and there, but, sometimes that's okay. Sometimes, if you want to, watch some Netflix or eat a cheeseburger or whatever, life is about balance, and it's not about being hard on it, being hard on yourself all the time. It's about being patient, not just with other people, but with yourself, and also learning to be more present and just be in the moment and just realize, now is all we have. We can't worry about the past because it's over with, and can't really worry about the future too much because it's not here. So only thing we can focus on is right now and being present right now and what we do right now. So that's a good answer. Next up, my man Tony says, we are all more resilient than we thought. I could not agree more, because think about at the beginning of this shit, all of us were going crazy. Oh my God, the world is coming to an end. What am I gonna do? And guess what? We all still here. We all still made it. 3 months later, we all still here. We all, for the most part, So I think we are a little bit more resilient than we think. And just because things seem bad doesn't mean that we'll necessarily, not be able to come through better on the other side. So I think that's a good response. Next up, let's see, we got April. April says, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit because she sent a lot, but essentially what she was saying is, so she sent me a picture, and it said, like, you really learn who your friends are during quarantine, and had that crossed out, and it said, maybe we shouldn't put so much pressure on people to check in on us all the time. And so I think the gist of what she was saying was, we don't always have to be dependent on somebody else to check on us all the time in order for them to prove that they care about us. Sometimes people are going through their own shit, at the end of the day. We all are going through our own shit. So I don't need to expect anybody to check on me all the time. Sometimes I just got to be there for myself. Sometimes I just got to, make sure I'm doing okay. And the flip side of that is you can't check on anybody if you're not okay with yourself. You can't be something for somebody that you're not, you can't be there for somebody if you can't take care of your own self and the own shit that you have going on in your own life. So I think what she was saying is just, be patient with people and just, worry about yourself sometimes. So good response. Definitely appreciate that. Next up, Diana. Diana says she's learned that she's not as much of an introvert as she thought. She always thought that she was a loner or the type, she always thought she was the loner type, but quickly realized how much we need human interaction to be at our maximum. On happiness, creativity, energy, motivation, etc. She's realized just how much we as humans need each other to make it in life. And we're not as invincible as we like to think or feel. And I couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot of people out there who would consider themselves introverts, and then you were forced to be inside. And I know some people are like, oh yeah, this is the best time of my life. But I think you really, if you really ask yourself, I think we all crave human interaction. We all crave being around other people, and, it helps with our energy. Like she says, it helps with your energy, your motivation, your creativity. Being around other people. We can't be stuck in the house all day, every day, because we'll go crazy. So, good response. Next up, Haley says she has learned the value of her people again. She feels like she used to say that before, but it hasn't really been as real as it is now. The only thing that I've learned is my connection with people. Money comes and goes. Jobs are clearly extremely expendable, but people, man, they mean everything. We all can agree with this. The people in our lives are probably what's most important right now. Some of us have lost jobs. Some of us have lost family members. And we just realized that, the people in our lives are what's really important. And I hope everyone's gotten a chance to spend more time with the people that they care about. I know I definitely have, been FaceTiming more with the family and all that stuff. So I just hope you realize, if you haven't yet today, pause this, send somebody a text, call somebody, and just let them know you're thinking about them, that you love them. And we need to do that more often. So let's see what we got next. Next up, we got my man Elijah. Elijah says, personal mindset of having to have stats or trophies to prove my worth and being extremely not important. So I think along the same lines as what Dale was talking about, that the things that you've done, your achievements, your trophies or whatever, the stats don't mean shit, and it's just more of a matter of who you are. And that's what's most important. So thank you. Next up, Philip. Phil says he's learned how many of the world's wealthiest people are still stuck living paycheck to paycheck. Don't let it fool you. Just because people are making money doesn't mean they're keeping money. I think this has all been a wake-up call. This has been a wake-up call for all of us to learn how to manage our money better. From big, giant corporations to little guys like me making shit. Everyone can learn how to manage their money better, for sure. So, let's see. Next up. I don't think there's a next. I think that was everything. That was everybody. That was dope. I definitely learned a lot just reading through these. I hope everyone takes something away from it. And I guess I'll share my piece now. This whole thing has really shown us what's important and who we really are. And the way I see it is we got two options because of this, once everything's lifted and, we can start going back to what's normal, we can either go back to the way that things were. That's option number one. We go back to the way that things were. And, in my opinion, there's a lot of shit wrong with the way that things were before all this. That's an option. We can just go back to doing things the way that we've always done them. Take these lessons and just throw them out the window and just, go back to the way things were. Or option number two, and I hope we all take option number two, is we come out of this thing better as, a society, as individuals, as communities, as the world. And we just take these lessons that everyone has shared and we apply them. And, we change the things that needed to be changed. Because like I said, there was a lot of things that needed to be changed. And I don't think normal was working for us. So I, for one, hope that, we all take these lessons to heart. I know that I for sure will. And, I think that was a good episode. That was it. Episode number 2 is in the books. Woo! I just want to let y'all know when I was writing my notes for this today, I used the number 2 pencil. And it just took me back to those days, when you had a clean fit and you had to show it off in front of the whole class. You went up to the pencil sharpener. You was up there for like 5 minutes. You probably sharpened it all the way down to the tip just so everybody could see your clean fit. But that had nothing to do with this podcast. I just wanted to let y'all know. And so we're going to end this how we always end it. Please, if you haven't done so, sign up for our daily mindset text. Go to www.mindsettext.com. And then last but not least, the song of the day. And so this, again, is one of my good friends. His name is Corey, a.k.a. Hype. And this is one of my favorite songs that he's done. It's called Alchemist. Hope y'all enjoy it. That being said, we up out of here. Peace.
They always hate on me. It's time to show 'em. Let's go. They always hate on me 'cause I go hard and I go hard, yeah. Every single day of my life I go hard and I go hard, yeah. 'Cause they don't wanna see me win, no. Yeah, they hate to see it. I work and the top is all I know. Yeah, I'm an alchemist, sparking synapses. I'm a catalyst, just producing hits. You can't counter this. Make it drop your fist. Down you go to the flow. I'm setting fire to the track to make it cold and turn it into gold. I'm a Sub-Zero, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm cold when I flex. Yeah, I'm popping arteries. Let it bleed. THC, gotta keep my mind at ease. Now let's turn up the degrees. I go hard. Yeah, I go hard. Shaking up the skate. I'm feeling that fall. Dodging all the hate coming from the losing squad. They holding their applause 'cause they rolling with some frauds. Yeah, I see you, I know you see me. 28 running game like I'm AP. You can challenge me, I'm indisputable. I'm about to have the world eating from my cuticle. They always hate on me 'cause I go hard and I go hard, yeah. Every single day my life, I go hard and I go hard, yeah. Cause they don't wanna see me win, no. I work and the top is all I know.
I'm your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, they don't know yet. I work hard, I play hard, I know the fame is coming. I don't walk and talk, my stride show I'm running. Y'all got a head start, now your lungs burning. So don't take a break, Kit Kat boy. I'm about to sub in and bring the crowd noise. Slithering stages, a hype mouth boy. I see you talking shit, just wash your mouth boy. Yeah, and you know I've been stunting. To you my old shit is new, it's that Benjamin Button. This ain't a magic trick, ain't gonna fade away. Now keep your pennies in shacks, finding out the harder way.
They always hating on me cause I go hard and I go hard, yeah. Every single day of my life I go hard and I go hard, yeah. Cause they don't wanna see me win, no. I work and the top is all